Hey guys, we're going to do a real quick review of addition and subtraction and just including a couple reminders for how to add and subtract large numbers. The first thing I want to review is actually our place value. So we always kind of start our smallest place value is here on the right. That's our ones. We sometimes call it the unit place value. That's just a mathematical term for one. And then as we get bigger going to the left, we have tens, hundreds, thousands, and 10,000s. We have a base 10 number system, which basically means that each place value is 10 times bigger than the one before it. So your tens is 10 times as big as a 1, and your 100 is a 10 times as big as a 10, and so on and so forth. So each time those place values get bigger, this is what allows us to borrow when we're subtracting. It's also why we carry numbers when we're adding, is because of this base 10 system. So we just have to keep that in mind kind of as we go through and we carry and borrow things. So let's take a look at an addition example first. So if we look at 4,723 plus 2,805, the first thing to notice is that we do have them lined up. You can kind of think of lining them up by the right, but we also have them, the ones are on top of each other, the tens, the hundreds, and the thousands. One thing that tends to help some students, if you have a hard time really kind of keeping numbers in line, you can turn your paper sideways so that the lines of your paper help you line up those numbers. Okay, so that's just a little trick some students like to use to help you keep everything in order. I'm going to erase those lines right now and add without them, but that is definitely something you can do. So if I was solving this problem, I would just start on the ones, or start with the ones. 3 plus 5 is 8. 2 plus 0 is 2. 7 plus 8 is 15, so this is where we're going to have to carry. So I carry the 1 of the 5, that tens place, up to the next place value, and then I keep the 5 down here. And then for the last one, we're just going to do 1 plus 4 plus 2, so 4 plus 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. Common mistake I see students make is they forget to add that one that they carried. So if you're going to carry a number, make sure you always include it in your adding. Okay, let's take a quick look at a couple subtraction problems now. So our first subtraction problem is going to look like this. It is 8,726 minus 4,817. For this problem, we're going to possibly have to do some borrowing as needed. So we always start with our ones when we subtract, okay? And right off the bat here, I have 6 minus 7, which we cannot do. So this is where we're going to need to borrow. And in order to borrow, what's going to happen is you're basically, think of it like taking a $10 bill and changing it in for 10 $1 bills. So we're going to take this 2, which is in the tens place, and we're going to take 1 10 away, which would make it 1, and then we're going to add that 10 to this 6 right here. So we've taken a $10 bill, we're exchanging for 10 more ones, and well, we had 6 ones and 10 more ones, so now we have 16 ones, and now we can do 16 minus 7, which equals 9. Then we can move over, so we have to make sure we use our new 1 right here. So 1 minus 1 is 0. I have to borrow again, and I have a 7 and an 8. So I'm going to borrow from this 8 here. It's going to become 7, and this 7 becomes 17. 17 minus 8 is 9. And then last but not least, 7 minus 4 is 3. Put my comma back in, final answer of 3,909. All right, so we had to borrow twice here. And one thing you'll notice is we only borrowed when needed. We didn't borrow all right away from the beginning. Okay, so this is a good example of kind of typical numbers that we use and subtracting and using that borrowing. But let's look at a problem that might look simple but tends to give some students trouble. So our next example is 2,000 minus 765. Now, some students know some pretty great strategies for this one, others maybe not so much. So one way I see a lot of students solve this is they know right away that we can't do 0 minus 5, we can't do 0 minus 6, or 0 minus 7. So you can only borrow from a neighbor, okay? And you should never go to the end of the block and start borrowing right away, but in this case, we can't do 0 minus 5, but we can't borrow from the 0, and we can't borrow from the 0. So what's going to happen is we're going to go to this 2, we're going to borrow from the 2, so 2 becomes 1. This first 0 would become 10, but then we're going to borrow from it right away, so that 10 becomes 9, and then this 0 becomes 10, but we still need to borrow from it for the next 0, so that 10 becomes 9, and this 0 at the end becomes 10. Now sometimes I see students make that last one a 9 because that's what they did with the last two, but we don't have to borrow from the ones place. That's our smallest place value. So now I can begin subtracting. I would do 10 minus 5 is 5. I can do 9 minus 6 is 3, and 9 minus 7 is 2. And I've got a 1, and essentially I've got a 0 here if I want to put in a placeholder, and 1 minus 0 is 1. My final answer is 1,235. I want to show you another way that you can solve this same problem using some of our laws of math. So if we look at the same problem, 2,000 minus 765, okay, one thing, or the ultimate rule of math is what I call it. The ultimate rule of math is what you do to one, you do to the other. So if I actually want to make this problem simpler, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to subtract 1 from both of these numbers. And I'm allowed to do that because, like I said, the ultimate rule of math is what you do to one, you do to the other. So instead of 2,000 minus 765, this is going to become 1,999 minus 764. And see how we, right off the bat, instantly have kind of easier numbers to subtract. I don't have zeros. I don't need to do any borrowing. So now I can go through and subtract, and I'd get 9 minus 4 is 5, 9 minus 6 is 3, 9 minus 7 is 2, and 1 minus 0 is 1. Okay, take a look. That is going to be the same answer we got the last time we solved this problem. All right, so if you're ever having trouble with a subtraction problem, that is one thing you can actually do is just, oops, sorry guys, think about, hey, could I take something away from both of these numbers to make this problem easier? So hopefully this has been a helpful review for adding and subtracting. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks, guys.